Marcus Webb had been sitting with his dying father for 3 hours when the old man finally said the words that would destroy everything Marcus thought he knew about his childhood. Your friend wasn't imaginary. The hospice room was quiet except for the rhythmic beep of monitors and the wheeze of oxygen flowing through the cannula in his father's nose. Outside, November rain hammered against the window. Inside, Marcus felt his blood go cold. What? His father's hand, papery and liver-spotted, reached across the blanket to grip Marcus's wrist with surprising strength. Mr. Hollow, the man you talked to in the walls. He was real, and he's been waiting 35 years for me to die so he can come back for you. Marcus pulled his hand away, forcing a laugh that came out strangled. Dad, you're on a lot of morphine. You should rest. I'm dying, boy, not delirious. His father's eyes were clear, sharp, terrifyingly lucid. I need you to listen. I need you to know what I did, what your mother and I did. Because when I'm gone, there won't be anything stopping him anymore. The rain intensified, drumming harder against the glass. In the corner of the room where the shadows gathered deepest, Marcus thought he saw something shift. His father saw him looking and smiled, bitter and afraid. He's already here, isn't he? Already watching. Jesus Christ, I thought we'd have more time. Marcus stood up his chair, scraping against the linoleum. I'm getting the nurse. Sit down. The command came with such force that Marcus obeyed before he could think. His father coughed a wet, rattling sound, then continued in a hoarse whisper. You're 42 years old. You deserve to know why you can't keep relationships, why you wake up at 3 a.m. feeling watched, why you moved 7 times in 10 years and still feel like something followed you. Marcus sat frozen. His father was right about all of it. It started when you were 7, his father said. The year you made your first friend. Welcome back to the channel. Quick question before we start. Do you remember your imaginary friends from childhood? The companions you talked to when no one else could see them? The voices that answered back from empty rooms, what if they weren't imaginary? What if your parents knew they were real and spent your entire childhood trying to protect you from the truth? Hit that like button. Subscribe for more true horror. And think very carefully before you dismiss this as just another creepypasta. Because Marcus Webb's father told him the truth on November 14th, 2019. And by December 3, people connected to Marcus's childhood were dead. This is what his father revealed. This is what happened that day. And this is what's still happening right now. Marcus Webb had what most people would call a normal childhood. Born in 1977 in Ashford, Pennsylvania, a Rust Belt town, where the steel mill had closed before he was born, and the population had been slowly bleeding out ever since he grew up in a split-level house on Morrison Street with his parents Douglas and Helen Webb. His father worked at the county water treatment plant. Steady job, decent benefits, enough to keep the family comfortable if not wealthy. His mother was a school secretary at Ashford Elementary, which meant she had summers off and could be home when Marcus got off the bus. They were ordinary people living ordinary lives in an ordinary dying town. No trauma, no tragedy, no dark secrets. Or so Marcus had always believed. He'd been an only child, which his mother said was by choice. One was enough. She'd joke, especially one as curious and talkative as Marcus. He'd needed constant entertainment, constant engagement. He'd drive her crazy with questions. Why is the sky blue? Where does water come from? What happens when we die? That last question had made both his parents uncomfortable. Marcus remembered. He'd asked it when he was 6, right after their neighbor, Mr. Chen, had passed away. His mother had given him some vague answer about heaven, but his father had just looked at him with an expression Marcus couldn't read and said, "Nothing good, so let's not think about it." When Marcus was 7, his parents' behavior changed. Subtle at first, his father installing new locks on all the doors, his mother insisting on checking his room before bed, both of them getting tense whenever Marcus was out of their sight for more than a few minutes. That was also the year Marcus made his first real friend, or what he'd thought was a friend. His name was Mr. Hollow, and Marcus met him in the walls. It started in March 1984. Marcus had been lying in bed unable to sleep because of a nightmare about drowning. He'd heard a scratching sound coming from inside his bedroom wall, the one that separated his room from the bathroom. At first, he'd thought it was a mouse. The house was old, built in the 1950s, and mice were a constant problem. But then the scratching formed a pattern. 3 scratches. Pause. 3 more. Pause. 3 more. Like someone knocking. "Hello," Marcus had whispered to the wall. The scratching stopped. Then impossibly, a voice answered from inside the wall, "Hello, Marcus." He should have screamed, should have run to his parents' room. But 7-year-old Marcus had been lonely, the only child of older parents in a neighborhood where most families had already moved away, and the voice had sounded friendly, warm, like someone who genuinely wanted to talk to him. "Who are you?" Marcus had asked. "I'm the person who lives in the in-between," the voice said. It sounded male, middle-aged, with a slight echo, like it was coming from very far away. Between the walls, between the floors, between what's real and what's not. "You can call me Mr. Hollow." They'd talked for hours that first night. Mr. Hollow had asked Marcus about school, about his parents, about his favorite things. Had listened with apparent fascination to every detail of Marcus's 7-year-old life. Had laughed at his jokes and sympathized with his problems, and made him feel for the first time truly seen. When Marcus finally fell asleep, it was with a smile on his face. He had a friend now, a secret friend who lived in the walls. Over the next few weeks, Mr. Hollow became Marcus's constant companion. They'd talk every night, always through the wall, always in whispers, so Marcus's parents wouldn't hear. Hollow would tell stories, strange, dark fairy tales about children who found doors to other worlds, about creatures that lived in shadows, about the spaces between spaces where anything was possible. Marcus never thought to question why Mr. Hollow was in the walls, or how he knew so much about Marcus's life, or why he always wanted to know where Marcus's parents were, what they were doing when they went to sleep. He was 7, and he was lonely, and Mr. Hollow was his friend. But his parents noticed the change in him. Marcus had started talking to himself, or what they thought was himself. They'd find him standing in front of walls, carrying on conversations with empty air. He'd whisper to the heating vents, the bathroom drains, the crawl space under the stairs. When they'd asked him who he was talking to, Marcus had told them the truth, Mr. Hollow, his friend, who lived in the walls. His mother had smiled and said that was nice, that lots of children had imaginary friends. His father had gone pale and left the room. That night, Marcus had overheard them arguing in their bedroom. His father's voice had been sharp, urgent. "We need to call someone. We need to get help." "He's 7, Doug. It's normal. It's not fucking normal, Helen. Jesus Christ, you didn't grow up here. You don't know what... He'd lowered his voice, then too quiet for Marcus to hear. The next day, his father had pulled up all the heating grates in the house, had torn open sections of drywall in Marcus's bedroom, the hallway, the bathroom, had crawled through the crawl space with a flashlight searching for something. He never said what. But Marcus knew. He was looking for Mr. Hollow. He didn't find anything. The walls were empty. The spaces between the floors contained only insulation and dust and the normal infrastructure of an aging house. But that night, when Marcus pressed his ear to the wall, Mr. Hollow whispered, "Your father is frightened of me. That means he knows I'm real. You should ask him why." Marcus never did ask, because a week later the murders started. The first death was Tommy Breslin, age 9, who lived 4 houses down from the Webbs on Morrison Street. Tommy had been Marcus's closest approximation of a real friend before Mr. Hollow came along. They'd played together, occasionally riding bikes, building forts in Tommy's backyard, trading comic books. Nothing deep, but friendly enough. On April 3rd, 1984, Tommy's mother had found him in the basement, drowned in 2 inches of water that had leaked from a burst pipe. The official cause of death was accidental. He'd slipped, hit his head on the concrete floor, and drowned while unconscious. Tragic, but not suspicious. Except Tommy's mother swore the basement had been dry when she'd sent him down to get laundry 20 minutes earlier. And the pipe that burst was in perfect condition, showed no signs of weakness or age. It had just opened, like someone had carefully cut it. The police found no evidence of foul play. The insurance company paid out. Tommy was buried at Ashford Cemetery on a cold, drizzly Saturday, and Marcus remembered standing at the graveside next to his father, watching them lower the small casket into the ground. His father had gripped his hand so tightly it hurt. "Stay close to me," he'd whispered. "Don't talk to anyone. And when we get home, we're going to have a conversation about Mr. Hollow." But they didn't have that conversation. Because when they got home, Marcus's mother was in the kitchen with another mother from the neighborhood, Mrs. Kowalski, who was crying and saying her daughter Amy had disappeared. Amy was 8. She'd been playing in her backyard, well within view of the kitchen window, where Mrs. Kowalski had been washing dishes. But when Mrs. Kowalski had looked out, Amy was gone. The search lasted 3 days. Police volunteers searched dogs combing through yards and woods and the abandoned buildings that dotted Ashford like rotten teeth. They found her on the 3rd day in the crawl space beneath St. Michael's Church, the old Catholic church that had been closed for renovations. She was alive but couldn't speak. Wouldn't speak. Just stared at nothing with wide, empty eyes and whimpered whenever anyone tried to touch her. The doctors called it selective mutism brought on by severe trauma. But Amy never told anyone what happened in those 3 days. Never spoke another word, actually. She was institutionalized 6 months later and died in a state facility in 1993. But before she stopped speaking entirely, she'd drawn a picture. The therapist showed it to the police, and the police showed it to the parents, trying to identify what Amy had drawn. It was a stick figure of a man. Very tall, very thin, standing in what looked like a wall, vertical lines on either side of the figure, like it was trapped or enclosed. The man had no face, just a blank circle for a head, and underneath in Amy's careful 2nd-grade handwriting, "The Hollow Man." Mrs. Kowalski had brought a copy of the drawing to show Marcus's mother. Does Marcus know anything about a hollow man Amy used to play with him sometimes? Maybe she told him about a game, or Marcus's father had snatched the drawing from Mrs. Kowalski's hands before his mother could see it, crumpled it, and asked Mrs. Kowalski to leave. Told her Marcus didn't know anything, and she should stop bothering them. After she left, Marcus had watched his father burn the drawing in the kitchen sink, then stand at the window staring out at the gray April sky for a long time. That night, Marcus had asked Mr. Hollow about Amy. "She's fine," Mr. Hollow had said through the wall. "She just needed to learn an important lesson." What lesson? That some friends are more special than others. That some friendship are exclusive. You understand exclusive, don't you, Marcus? Like, only one. Exactly. I'm your only friend now, Marcus. Tommy was getting in the way. Amy was a distraction. But now they're gone and it's just us. Isn't that better? Marcus had felt cold. Had understood on some level his 7-year-old brain couldn't quite articulate that Mr. Hollow was confessing to something terrible. Did you hurt them? I protected you. That's what friends do. Marcus had pulled away from the wall, then his heart pounding. He'd wanted to run to his parents to tell them everything, but Mr. Hollow's voice had followed him, seeming to come from every wall at once. If you tell Marcus, I'll have to visit your parents too. Your mother who sleeps so soundly. Your father who thinks he can protect you but can't. I'm in the walls, Marcus. I'm in the pipes. I'm in the spaces you can't see. There's nowhere in this house I can't reach. Marcus had spent that night with his lights on, too terrified to sleep. The next morning, his father had taken him aside. "We need to talk about your friend, Mr. Hollow." "He's not real." Marcus had lied immediately. "I made him up." His father had knelt down eye level with Marcus, hands on his shoulders. "I know he's real. I know he talks to you. And I need you to listen to me very carefully. Don't answer him anymore. Don't acknowledge him. Pretend you can't hear him." "Why?" "Because he's not a friend. He's not even a person. He's something else. Something bun. And the only power he has is what you give him." "What is he?" His father had hesitated, then said, "Something that got trapped in the walls when this house was built. Something that's been waiting a long time for someone to talk to, for someone to let it in. But I didn't let it in, it was already here. You invited it, by talking to it, by trusting it. That's all it needed." His father had pulled him into a tight hug. "But we're going to fix this, your mother and I. We're going to make you safe." That had been a lie, of course, because you can't make someone safe from something that lives in the spaces between, something that can be everywhere and nowhere at once. But his parents tried. Over the next week, they brought in contractors, ripped out more walls, replaced all the plumbing, had the house blessed by a priest, saged by a woman who called herself a medium, and finally, after everything else failed, simply abandoned. They moved out on April 15th, 1984, less than 2 weeks after Tommy Breslin's death. Packed everything they could fit in their station wagon and his father's pickup truck, and left Morrison Street behind the house standing empty, with a for sale sign stabbed into the front lawn. They moved 40 miles away to Bellbrook, Pennsylvania. New town, new house, new start. And for 3 months, Marcus didn't hear from Mr. Hollow. He'd started to believe it had worked. That his father had been right. Mr. Hollow was tied to that house, trapped in those specific walls, and they'd escaped. Then in July, Marcus had heard the scratching in his new bedroom wall. 3 scratches. Pause. 3 more. Pause. 3 more. And Mr. Hollow's voice, warm and familiar and terrible. "Hello again, Marcus. Did you miss me?" His parents' reaction when Marcus told them was worse than the fear. It was resignation. His mother had cried. His father had poured himself a glass of whiskey, something Marcus had never seen him do in the middle of the day, and drank it in one long swallow. "It followed us," his father had said quietly. "Jesus Christ, it followed us." "What do we do?" his mother had asked. His father had no answer. So they did what desperate people do. They tried everything. They moved again, and again, and again. 5 different houses in 3 years. Small towns, big cities, apartments, trailers, once even a farmhouse, so isolated, the nearest neighbor was 3 miles away. Mr. Hollow followed them to every single one. Sometimes he'd be quiet for weeks, letting them think they'd finally escaped. Then Marcus would wake up to the scratching in the walls, the voice in the heating vents, the whispers coming from the bathroom drain. "Why won't you just talk to me, Marcus? I thought we were friends." They tried priests and psychics and paranormal investigators. One woman, a severe-looking grandmother who claimed to have dealt with entities for 40 years, had spent 2 hours in Marcus's bedroom, sage smudge stick, smoking voice low and commanding, as she ordered Mr. Hollow to leave. The scratching had stopped. The woman had smiled in satisfaction and started packing up her supplies. Then the walls had started bleeding. Not blood, exactly. A clear, viscous fluid that smelled like standing water and old meat seeping from the drywall in long streaks. The woman had stumbled backward, fallen, scrambled to the door, and refused to come back, no matter how much money Marcus's parents offered. That night, Mr. Hollow had laughed. "She thinks I'm a ghost. How quaint. Ghosts are just echoes, Marcus. I'm so much more than that." "What are you?" Marcus had whispered to the wall, unable to help himself. "I'm what waits in the empty places. I'm what fills the voids. I'm what happens when space gets hungry." None of it made sense to 8-year-old Marcus, but it terrified him anyway. The moves and the failed exorcisms took their toll on the family. His father became withdrawn, drinking more, working longer hours. To afford all the desperate solutions, they kept trying. His mother aged rapidly, her hair going gray by the time Marcus was 9. And Marcus himself changed, became quiet, withdrawn, stopped trying to make friends because he knew what happened to his friends. Learned to ignore Mr. Hollow, to pretend the scratching and the whispers weren't there. But Mr. Hollow was patient, would go silent for months, then return with a vengeance. And whenever he returned, someone in Marcus's life would get hurt. His 4th grade teacher, Mrs. Chen, who'd taken a special interest in Marcus's education car accident, survived but with permanent brain damage. His Little League coach, who'd convinced Marcus to join the team, heart attack at 42, dead before the ambulance arrived. The school counselor who'd been working with Marcus on his social isolation issues, found in his office with both wrists slit, ruled a suicide even though he'd shown no signs of depression. The pattern was clear. Anyone who got close to Marcus, anyone who tried to help him, anyone who became important to him, they suffered. By the time Marcus was 12, he'd learned not to let anyone in. Kept to himself, ate lunch alone, went straight home after school, lived in a bubble of isolation that kept everyone else safe. And Mr. Hollow seemed satisfied with that arrangement. The accidents stopped. The deaths stopped. Marcus aged through middle school and high school in a fog of loneliness and quiet terror, counting the days until he could leave. He went to college at 18, moving across the country to Oregon, as far from Pennsylvania as he could afford. Thought maybe distance would help. Thought maybe Mr. Hollow wouldn't follow him to a dorm room. He was wrong. The first week of freshman year, Marcus's roommate, a friendly kid from California named Josh, had woken up screaming. Said he'd felt someone standing over his bed watching him. Said when he'd opened his eyes, he'd seen a figure standing in the corner. Tall, thin, no face. Josh had moved out the next day. Marcus spent the rest of the year alone. He tried to date in college. Met a girl named Sarah at a party, sweet and patient, willing to work through Marcus's awkwardness and isolation. They dated for 3 months. Then Sarah had started hearing voices in her apartment, started seeing things in her peripheral vision, started waking up at 3 a.m. to find her furniture rearranged. Her belongings moved, her photos turned face down. She'd broken up with Marcus via text message. "I don't know what's wrong with you, but something is. Please don't contact me again." After that, Marcus stopped trying, graduated with a degree in accounting, got a quiet job at a quiet firm, moved into a studio apartment, lived a life of complete isolation. He told himself it was safer this way. Told himself he was protecting people. But really, he was just surviving. Waiting for something to change. Waiting for Mr. Hollow to finally finish whatever game he was playing. The years passed. Marcus worked, came home, ate dinner alone, slept poorly, repeated. He moved 7 times in 10 years, not to escape Mr. Hollow anymore. Just because he couldn't stand staying in one place, couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. His parents called every week, but he kept the conversation short. His mother would ask if he was eating enough, if he'd met anyone, if he was happy. He'd lie and say yes. His father would just ask, "Is he still there?" And Marcus would say, "Always." They'd tried to have a real conversation about it once when Marcus was 30. His father had driven out to Oregon, sat Marcus down and tried to explain. "There's something I never told you," his father had said, "about the house on Morrison Street, about why we lived there. Does it matter? It might. Because I think this is my fault, Marcus. I think I'm the reason Mr. Hollow found you." But before his father could explain, Marcus's apartment building had a pipe burst. Water flooded the hallway, poured under doors, destroyed 6 units, including Marcus's. His father had left that night, pale and shaking, saying only, "He doesn't want me to tell you, but someday I will, when it's safe." "When will it be safe?" "When I'm dying," his father had said. "When I have nothing left to lose." That had been 12 years ago. And now here they were in a hospice room in Portland, Oregon, with his father hooked up to machines and time running out. "Tell me," Marcus said. "Tell me everything." His father took a rattling breath and began. "I killed a man when I was 16, his father said. "Or I thought I did. I'm still not sure if he was a man at all." The hospice room felt colder. Marcus pulled his chair closer to the bed. It was 1959. I lived on Morrison Street in the same house you grew up in, with my parents and my younger brother Danny. He was 8. Sweet kid. Talked to everyone, trusted everyone. The kind of child predators dream about. His father coughed, accepted water from the cup on the bedside table. There was a man who lived in the condemned apartment building 2 blocks over. Squatter, we assumed. We'd see him sometimes, always at dusk, always standing perfectly still in the same spot corner of Morrison and 5th, just watching the neighborhood kids play. Did he have a name? If he did, no one knew it. We called him the Hollow Man because, Christ Marcus, you could look right at him and not really see him. He was like a gap in the world, a blank space shaped like a person. Marcus's skin crawled. The Hollow Man, the same name Amy Kowalski had written under her drawing 35 years ago. Danny started talking about his new friend. His father continued. Said he met him in the walls. Said the man lived in the spaces between. Same shit you said when you were 7. My parents thought it was imaginary. But I'd seen the Hollow Man, and I'd seen him watching Danny. What did you do? Nothing at first. Didn't know what to do, but then my friend Peter disappeared. Just gone right out of his bedroom at night. They found him 3 days later in the sewer system miles from his house. He was alive but wouldn't cop on what happened. Just kept drawing the same thing over and over, a tall man with no face standing in a wall. His father's grip on Marcus's hand tightened. A week later, Danny went missing. My parents were at work. I was supposed to be watching him. I'd been upstairs for maybe 15 minutes. When I came down, the front door was open and Danny was gone. Where was he? I found him in the condemned building, 4th floor. In a room that shouldn't have existed. It was bigger than the building's footprint, Marcus. The walls were wrong. And Danny was standing in the center of it, with the Hollow Man holding his hand. His father's voice broke. I lost it. Grabbed a piece of rebar from the construction debris on the ground floor and went after him. Hit him in the head. Kept hitting him until he went down. Until he stopped moving. Until Danny was crying and screaming at me to stop. You killed him. I thought I did. There was blood everywhere. I dragged Danny out of there, told him we could never tell anyone what happened. Made him swear. Then I went back to hide the body. His father's eyes went distant, reliving it. It was gone. The blood was still there, but the body was gone. And the room, that impossible room, was just a normal space again. Small, empty, abandoned, like it had never been anything else. What did you do? I ran. Took Danny home. Told my parents we'd been playing in the yard the whole time. Danny never contradicted me. Never spoke about it again. His father looked at Marcus. But a week later, I started hearing scratching in my bedroom wall. Marcus's blood went cold. It was him, the Hollow Man, whispering to me at night, telling me he wasn't dead. Telling me he was everywhere now, in the walls, in the pipes, in every space I couldn't see. Telling me I'd set him free. Set him free from what? The condemned building. He'd been trapped there somehow, contained. But when I smashed his physical form, I released whatever he really was. Turned him from something that existed in one place into something that could exist everywhere at once. His father coughed again, longer this time, wet and painful. He followed me for years. Every house I moved to. Every relationship I tried to have. He ruined everything. Made my girlfriends sick, made my employers suspicious, made me untouchable. I was 43 years old and completely alone when I met your mother. Did he come for her? Oh yes. Started the scratching the week after we married. Started whispering to her in the drains. But your mother was different, stronger. She didn't give him power by listening. She ignored him so completely, he eventually went quiet around her. His father smiled, sad and distant. I thought maybe we'd beaten him. That love was stronger than whatever he was. And for a while it seemed like it. We bought the old house on Morrison Street cheap because it had a reputation for being unlucky, and we were happy there. Until I was born. Until you were born, his father confirmed. And then he came back with a vengeance, because you were exactly what he'd been waiting for a child. Innocent, trusting, willing to believe in friends who lived in walls. Why children? Because children have imagination, have the capacity to believe in impossible things. That belief gives him power, Marcus, gives him form. The more you believed in Mr. Hollow, the more real he became. His father's breathing was labored now, each word an effort. Your mother and I tried everything to protect you. Moved, blessed the houses, tried to teach you to ignore him. But he was patient, and he was strong. And he'd been feeding on your belief for years. The people who died, my friends, my teachers, that was him. That was him. Punishing anyone who might take you away from him. Isolating you so he'd be your only companion. He wanted to consume you completely, Marcus. Wanted to pull you into the spaces between where you'd exist forever as his friend. Why didn't he? His father smiled bitterly. Because of me. I made a deal with him when you were 12. Told him if he left you alone, if he let you live a normal life, I'd give him what he really wanted. What did he want? Me. The one who destroyed his physical form. The one who set him free but also wounded him. He's been waiting 30 years for me to die, Marcus. Waiting to take me into the walls. And when I'm gone, his father's eyes filled with tears. When I'm gone, there won't be anything keeping him from coming back for you. There has to be a way to stop him. There is. His father reached under his pillow and pulled out a folded piece of paper. Your Uncle Danny, he never got over what happened in that building. Spent his whole life researching the Hollow Man. Found out things. Terrible things. But useful things. He pressed the paper into Marcus's hand. The Hollow Man isn't a ghost, isn't a demon. He's a void, an absence of reality that learned to think. And the only way to stop a void is to fill it. Fill it with what? His father's grip on Marcus's hand became crushing. With belief, but not belief in him, belief in something else, something stronger. Danny found a ritual. It's all written down. But you have to do it before I die, Marcus. You have to trap him while he's still bound to our deal. The monitors started beeping faster. A nurse appeared in the doorway, saw his father's deteriorating vitals, and called for the doctor. Dad, wait. The condemned building, his father gasped. It's still there, abandoned. Go to it, tonight. Follow Danny's instructions exactly. And Marcus, The doctor was in the room now, pushing Marcus aside, checking his father's vitals. Marcus. His father's voice was fading. Don't listen if he calls you. Don't answer. Don't believe. The heart monitor flatlined. The doctor started CPR while the nurse pulled Marcus from the room. 10 minutes later, Douglas Webb was pronounced dead. And in the sudden, terrible silence that followed, Marcus heard it scratching from inside the walls of the hospice room. 3 scratches. Pause. 3 more. Pause. And Mr. Hollow's voice, warm and familiar and horrible. Hello again, Marcus. Now we can finally be together forever. Marcus ran. Out of the hospice into the November rain into his car. He drove with no destination, just away, but knew it was pointless. Mr. Hollow wasn't something you could outrun. The paper his father had given him was crumpled in his fist. He pulled over in a deserted parking lot and unfolded it with shaking hands. The handwriting was neat, methodical, his Uncle Danny's, who'd died 10 years ago from a heart attack. Or what they'd called a heart attack. Marcus knew better now. The instructions were precise. The Hollow Man is a wound in reality. He exists in the spaces we don't perceive, between walls, between moments, between thoughts. He feeds on isolation and belief. To destroy him, you must do the opposite, fill the void with connection. Required. Return to the place where he first became aware. Bring objects that represent human connection. Photographs, letters, anything with emotional meaning. At 3:00 a.m. exactly, burn these objects in the center of his first room. While burning, speak the names of everyone he took. Fill the void with their memory, their love, their loss. Believe harder in them than you ever believed in him. Marcus stared at the instructions. His father had said the condemned building on Morrison Street was still standing. That was in Pennsylvania. He was in Oregon. A cross-country drive would take days. But his father had also said, "Before I die." He was too late. Unless Marcus pulled out his phone and searched Morrison Street, condemned building, Ashford, Pennsylvania. The building was still there, scheduled for demolition next month. But there was something else in the search results. A paranormal investigation channel had done an episode there last year. Marcus clicked the video. The investigators had found the same impossible room, had documented it on camera, had fled when their equipment started malfunctioning, and they'd heard whispers in the walls. One of them had been hospitalized after the investigation. Heart attack, age 27. The comments on the video were full of people reporting strange experiences after watching shadows in their peripheral vision, scratching in their walls, voices calling their names. Mr. Hollow was spreading, using the internet now, reaching more people, growing stronger. Marcus looked at the date the video was posted 3 months ago. 3 months ago, right when his father's health had started declining rapidly. It wasn't cancer killing his father. It was the deal coming due. Marcus called the airline. The next flight to Pittsburgh left in 3 hours. He'd have to drive from there to Ashford another hour. But he could make it. He went home and grabbed everything he could find with emotional weight. Photos of his parents, his high school yearbook letters his mother had written him in college, a birthday card from his Uncle Danny. As he packed, he felt watched, heard scratching from his bedroom wall. "You can't stop me." Mr. Hollow's voice drifted from the heating vent. "I'm everywhere now, Marcus. in every wall, every pipe, every dark corner of the world. Your father's death freed me. I don't need to follow you anymore. I am you. I'm inside you. I've always been inside you. Marcus ignored him, kept packing. All those years of isolation, all those years of loneliness. That was me, Marcus. I wasn't just watching you, I was shaping you. Every friend you lost, every relationship that failed, I made you into exactly what I needed. Someone completely alone. Someone whose belief in me is absolute. Marcus zipped the bag closed. You can go to Pennsylvania. You can try Danny's ritual, but you'll fail, because to fill a void with love, you need to have experienced love. And you haven't, Marcus. You've only experienced me. Marcus walked out of the apartment without responding, drove to the airport in silence, boarded the red-eye to Pittsburgh. The entire flight, he felt something in the seat next to him. A presence. A weight. When he landed at 6 a.m. Eastern Time, his phone had 17 missed calls, all from his own home number in Oregon. He didn't listen to the voicemails. He knew what they'd say. The drive to Ashford took 70 minutes. The town looked worse than Marcus remembered, more buildings boarded up, more streets empty, more of everything dying. The condemned building still stood on Morrison and 5th. Chain-link fence around it, condemned signs, warnings about structural instability. Marcus parked across the street and waited. He had until 3 a.m., 18 hours to prepare, to gather courage, to believe. He spent the day in his car, going through the photographs and letters, trying to remember what it felt like to not be alone, trying to believe his father had loved him, his mother had loved him, that somewhere beneath all the isolation and fear, he was still human. By sunset, he'd convinced himself it was possible. By midnight, doubt had crept back in. At 2:30 a.m., he climbed the fence. The building's interior was worse than Marcus had imagined. 50-plus years of decay, vandalism, weather damage. The stairs to the 4th floor were questionable, but they held. The 4th floor was different, less damaged, almost preserved, like something had been protecting it. Marcus found the room at the end of the hall. The door was open. Inside, the space was wrong, too big. The walls met at angles that didn't make geometric sense. In the center of the floor was a dark stain, old blood maybe, from the Hollow Man's original body. Marcus checked his phone. 2:58 a.m. He arranged his photographs and letters in a circle around the stain, pulled out a lighter. At exactly 3:00 a.m., he lit the first photograph. It was of his mother, young and smiling. He said her name, Helen Webb. The next was his father, Douglas Webb. The flames grew. Marcus kept going, naming everyone Mr. Hollow had taken. Tommy Breslin, Amy Kowalski, his teachers, his coaches, his brief college friends. With each name, the room shook. The walls groaned. Mr. Hollow's voice rose from everywhere at once. Stop, stop, stop. But Marcus didn't stop. He named everyone he'd ever cared about, everyone who'd been hurt because of him. Let the flames consume the photographs, the letters, the evidence of human connection. "You think this will work?" Mr. Hollow shrieked. "You think love is enough? You're as hollow as I am, Marcus. I made sure of it." Marcus lit the last photograph. It was of him as a child, age 7, smiling at something off camera. Marcus Webb, he said quietly. The room imploded. Marcus felt reality collapse around him, sucking inward toward the stain on the floor. The walls cracked. The void at the center of the room opened wider, and Marcus understood in that moment of perfect clarity what his Uncle Danny's research had really meant: to fill the void with connection. The Hollow Man wasn't the void. The Hollow Man was what filled the void when nothing else did. The real void was Marcus himself. 42 years of isolation, of loneliness, of keeping everyone at arm's length. 42 years of believing he was dangerous, toxic, better off alone. He'd been the empty space all along, and Mr. Hollow had been filling him. To destroy Mr. Hollow, Marcus had to fill himself with something else. But he'd spent his whole life empty. Hadn't let anyone in since he was 7 years old. The void widened. Marcus felt himself being pulled toward it. Then his phone rang. Impossible, there was no signal here, no reception in this impossible room. But it rang anyway. Marcus answered. Marcus, his mother's voice. Marcus, where are you? Your father died and you just disappeared, and I've been calling and calling, Mom. The word came out broken. When had he last called her that? When had he last called her anything except a brief formal hello on their weekly obligatory calls? Are you okay? Please tell me you're okay. I know you and your father had a complicated relationship, but I'm worried about you. I love you. Please talk to me. I love you. The void shuddered. I'm sorry, Marcus said. I'm sorry I've been so distant. I'm sorry I never let you in. I thought I was protecting you, but I was just protecting him. I was just feeding him. Protecting me from what, Marcus, you're not making sense. I love you too, Marcus said. The words felt foreign, rusty. I love you, and I'm sorry I never said it enough. The void began to close. Marcus, please tell me where you are. I'm fixing something Dad and I broke a long time ago. But Mom, I'm going to need you after this. I'm going to need to learn how to not be alone. Can you help me with that? His mother was crying. Of course I can. Just please be safe. I will. The void was closing faster now. The impossible room was collapsing, becoming just a room again. Mr. Hollow screamed, not with voice, with absence, with the sound of something being erased. You can't, he shrieked. You're mine. You've always been mine. No, Marcus said quietly. I was never yours. I was just empty, but I don't have to be anymore. The void closed with a sound like a door slamming shut in a house that had been abandoned for too long. And Mr. Hollow disappeared. Marcus walked out of the building as the sun rose. The condemned structure looked smaller somehow, less threatening. Just an old building ready for demolition. He called his mother back, told her everything, a 42-year confession that took 3 hours. She listened to all of it. Come home, she said when he finished. Not to Oregon, here, to me. Stay as long as you need. Okay, Marcus said. Yeah, I'd like that. He flew back to Pennsylvania that afternoon. His mother picked him up from the airport, and when she hugged him, Marcus didn't pull away. The funeral was 2 days later. Small service. Marcus gave the eulogy, talked about his father's bravery, his sacrifice, his love. After the service, going through his father's belongings, Marcus found a journal. Entries dating back to 1959. The last entry was dated 3 days before his father's death. Marcus thinks I'm dying of cancer. I let him think that. Easier than the truth. The truth is, I'm dying of the deal. Every day, Mr. Hollow takes a little more of me, a little more of my life in exchange for leaving Marcus alone. But I don't regret it. Every year Marcus lived free was worth it, and Danny's ritual will work. I know it will, because Marcus has something I never had. He has people who love him. He's just forgotten how to let them in. If you're reading this, Marcus, then I'm gone, and you succeeded. The Hollow Man is gone too, or you wouldn't be here going through my things. He'd have taken you already. Don't waste this. Don't go back to being alone. Let your mother in, let other people in. Fill yourself with connection so completely that nothing else can fit. That's the real ritual. That's how you stay free. I love you. I'm proud of you. And I'm sorry I didn't know how to save you any other way. Dad Marcus folded the journal closed and let himself cry.